G'day folks, Wren here, and it is time for some recommendations for the bounties for Adventurerathon. So if you don't know what Adventurerathon is, it is a readathon hosted by Kirsty from K-Beth Bookish. I am one of the co-hosts, as well as Jonah from Words from the Void. It's a very immersive readathon and it's so much fun. In January, currently, we are doing our first round of an adventure, whereas the previous rounds we've been doing character making. So for this round, we have our main quests, which I was meant to do a recommendation for those as well, but I didn't get around to doing it, so we'll just do one for the side quests, which the side quests are now being called bounties, because by completing any of these bounties, you get a certain amount of gold coins. And with that gold, what you can do is buy some magic items from our lovely merchant, who may or may not sell you things, depends how he's feeling on the day. You get the gold, get the special stuff that means you can do certain things during the readathon. I will link Kirsty's video down below. She will explain everything so much better than I ever will. But for the bounties, I think there are 10 in total, but two or three of them are non-reading prompts, so I won't be giving any recommendations for those, obviously. But for the ones that do have a bookish prompt, I am going to recommend 2 books per prompt, and everything's going to be queer. Because, hello, my name is Wren. I am a non-binary, biromantic human being. Everything I do is queer. So the books are going to be queer as well. So the first one is The Crone's Nest, and for this you have to read a book featuring dark or evil witches. So the first recommendation I have for this is Spellbound by Ali Theron. Technically, I'd recommend the entire series. And in this, we have people who have these magical powers, and while we're following the good guys are trying to locate these really powerful magical items that some people who have been corrupt by this power want. And this is set in the 1920s in, I believe, New York. And we are following a queer male-male relationship couple. It is very sweet. This couple is a really interesting one, and they really like take care of each other, because one of our main characters who has these magical powers, the thing about the powers in this world is that you can get really sucked into them really quickly and have really bad consequences. It's a very complicated kind of magic system, but there are definitely people who are magic users that are definitely on the side of evil. The second book I will recommend for this is Hollow by Shannon Waters. This is a graphic novel that is inspired by the Sleepy Hollow mythology, urban legend. That's what it more is, an urban legend. So we have the Headless Horseman legend surrounding all of that. This is about a young girl who is a descendant of, she might have been a crane, I can't remember. But we have a descendant of one of these famous people, and she has kind of been haunted in a way by the Headless Horseman all her life. And now this new girl moves to town and they start having a relationship, and it's really cute. But there is a evil magic user who comes along and wants to really harm this young girl and do all these kind of magical things that they really shouldn't be doing. So it's these 2 girls and their male friend are trying to like save the day, and the Headless Horseman is also there trying to save the day. And it was a really fun time, a great graphic novel, especially if you want something quick for Adventurerathon. Read this one. So the next bounty is Missing Presumed Alive, and for this you have to read a book about a disappearance. For this one, I'm going to recommend Kogitsune by Jaja Lake. So sorry if that pronunciation is awful. But this is a short queer historical novella. I really enjoyed this. It is about a kitsune, which is a Japanese fox spirit. They are seen as tricksters. This young kitsune is kind of coming into their own, and they meet a human boy and they form this like friendship, a bit of a romance. But the kitsune, you know, he's got rules to follow, unfortunately. So he has to leave the human boy. So there were some little like sad bits, but then they come back together several years later and things are happening. Now, the reason for this disappearance is because a few different things happen in this story where one of them thinks the other has like been killed, kind of. Another one thinks that the other is just been taken away and missing. So there is this whole disappearance thing happening. They do find each other in the end, but there is some disappearance things happening. Then the next one is House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. This is one of my favorite books. It was one of my favorites of 2023. I loved it. This has a bisexual main character and a lesbian side character, and this is about these three sisters. When they were younger, they went missing, but then after a little bit they came back, but they came back a little different. And now we're 10 plus years on, and the eldest sister has gone missing again. So her two sisters are trying to find her, and it's this long kind of journey trying to find the other sister and figure out what happened to them when they were younger. There is this whole like decaying forest vibe throughout the whole thing, and I love it. It is very much that particular kind of creepy vibes that I love. Then the next bounty is Monster Slayer, and for this you have to read a book over 600 pages, which is a lot. Now, I don't often read really long books. I would like to improve that in 2024, but as of now, I haven't read that many. I have 2 books that I will recommend. One I've read, one I haven't. So we'll start with the one that I have read. So first up is Lair of Dreams by Libba Bray, which is 613 pages. Now this is the second in the Diviners series. I love the Diviners series, it's great. Lair of Dreams is my favorite of the series because we are following Henry, who is a gay man, and this is set in the 1920s where people have magical powers. They are called diviners. And in this one we're following Henry as he is dealing with his powers, and he's trying to find his lover who has gone missing. He teams up with another like dream walker, and they have this whole adventure in this dreaming world because in the real world people are dying from a sleeping sickness, so they're trying to like figure out what's happening there as well. And I really love the second one. It was a really solid book and such a fun time. And if you haven't read the Diviner series, I do definitely recommend it. Then the other book that I want to recommend, but I haven't read it yet, but I would really like to, is Sufficiently Advanced Magic by Andrew Rao, which is 625 pages. I unfortunately don't know too much about this. I have wanted to read it for a really long time though, because it's queer, obviously. Don't quote me on it, but I believe that there is some asexual representation, I hope. But if not asexual, then it does have gay male main characters, and it is set in a fantastical world. There is magic, and I really should have looked up more before I clicked record because I'm recording on my camera, so I can't actually look up what the book is about, but I have heard amazing things about this and I'm really looking forward to it. The next bounty is Nocturnal Terrors, and for this you have to read an entire book in one night. First up for this, I'm going to recommend Camilla Devereaux's First Blush by Calypso Hart. This is a really short, steamy novella. It is about this woman who is in her 30s. She's just gotten divorced and she's not feeling confident in her body anymore because she's gained a lot of weight over the years, and her ex-husband was awful, and she's trying to like reclaim herself. She goes to a bar and she meets this couple, a man and a woman. They're married, and they invite her to be their third for the night. It's great. There is a lot of scenes between the two women, but also the man as well, and it's really good. I'm honestly surprised at how good this was, but I really love it. And then it's a whole series, and in the second one it focuses more on the female relationship and like just their friendship as well as their more sexual relationship, and it's really well done, and it's a good little steamy novella series, and I would definitely recommend it. Give it a go if you're in the mood for some steam. Next up is My Lady's Lover by Nicola Davidson. This is a queer historical romance between two women. So this is really short, so you can get through it very quickly, maybe in a single night. And in this, we have a lady and her lady's maid, I guess would kind of be the term for her. The maid has had a crush on this woman for a long time. This woman's husband has been abusing her for years. And at one point, the maid is like, look, you're really stressed. Your husband has just been a total asshole to you. Let me take care of you. So she starts giving her a massage. And things go on from there. It was the steamiest massage I've ever read. It was a good time. And then we get to see them developing their relationship from there. The other thing I really liked about this book was that our maid is a part of this little society called the Surrey's Sexual Freedom Society. And it's just a group of people who meet up every once in a while and talk about taboo topics, like sexual taboo topics. Not always super taboo, but they're just more open about their sexuality and everything that entails. But it's a really cute little like friendship they have going on, and I really enjoy it. And the rest of the series follows the rest of the people in that group, and some of them are queer. Your next bounty is Tangling a Terror, and for this you have to read some monster smut. I love me some monster smut, it's such a good time. And so I have 2 books to recommend for this as well. The first one is Claimed by the Orc Prince by Lionel Hart. This is a male-male romance, and it is very much a fantasy romance. We have a elf and an orc, and they have to get married to each other to form a peace between these 2 races. Neither of them particularly want to do this, but they're doing it for their people. So these 2 enter into this marriage of convenience. They kind of get to know each other and feelings happen. Now, the reason I wanted to choose this for Monster Smut is because our orc is large, you know? You get what I mean there. And this book definitely has a size kink thing happening. It wasn't for me, but to each their own. It was still a good book, and I do want to continue the series. Then the next recommendation is Kissed by a Krampus by Elle Eveland. This was the last book I read in 2023, and I gave it 5 stars. I loved it so much. So in this, we have a retired soldier who is really suffering with PTSD, and one night before Christmas, which he hates, he gets into a car accident. When he wakes up, he's in like Antarctica, and a Krampus, a literal Krampus, is taking care of him, and they start to form a really solid bond with each other. And then they go on these like hunting missions to hunt these particular bad magical creatures, and they had such like a solid relationship. It was beautiful, and there were so many intricate things happening in this. I loved it. Again, we have a slight size kink, not as much as Claimed by the Orc Prince, but slight size kink. But again, with the Krampus, he's covered in hair. I think he had horns as well, and he has interesting lower regions, you know? But he also has a tail that has a kind of like a stinger on the end that is usually used for breeding, and if it is injected into someone, they become very, do I want to say horny on the internet? Sure, they become very horny. The next bounty is Important Delivery, and for that you have to read a book with travel elements. For this, I could not recommend this book fast enough, but it is Darius the Great is Not Okay by Adib Khorram. This is one of my favorite books of all time. It's a comfort read for me. It is about this teenager named Darius who is going to Iran with his family because they are Persian. They're Persian American, and they've been living in America his whole life. And he's always felt like an outcast because he is Persian American. and because he has depression and he is fat and he's also kind of internally dealing with these queer feelings that he is having. In the first book, it is not officially stated that he's queer, but you still get those vibes. In the second book, it is confirmed that he is gay. But in this first book, his family travels to Iran. When they're in Iran, they are there to visit their mother's parents, and they stay there for a few months, I think, and they have a lot of family time. Even when they are in Iran, they go to different places so that they can see, they can see Iran for the first time because these kids have never been. And it's such a beautiful book, amazing mental health representation, and it's absolutely stunning. I'm obsessed with this book, can't recommend it enough. The next one is Just the Two of Us by Carrie Green. This is another short book, and it is a sapphic romance. So we have these two female friends. They're celebrating one of their birthdays. I can't remember what the age is, but they are at least adults. But they go to this little small town, just the two of them, for the weekend to celebrate the birthday. And one of these women decides that she's finally going to tell her best friend that she's in love with her. And that does happen. And they spend some time together and develop their relationship. And it's really sweet and just lovely. I don't usually like friends to lovers, but I really loved this one. And I also just loved the town. That was a beautiful town. And I cannot wait to read more from this series because I think it's just going to be really just like cozy romances, which I am very much in the mood for lately. The next bounty I cannot remember the name of, but what I wrote down on my notes was Council Be Sus. For that, you have to read a book about politics or some kind of political element in it. So first up, I'm going to recommend Iron Widow by Ziran J. Zhao. I really enjoyed this book. It has a polyamorous relationship in the forefront, but in this we have these kind of mechas that are very popular and used quite a lot for battles and everything. In these mechas, traditionally there has always been one male and one female, but the male pilot, he kind of uses the life force of the female pilot to then power the mecha. So a lot of women have been dying until the Iron Widow comes along and she's like, no. And she just kind of like decimates everything. But because she's being so brutal with everything, people in power start to want to like tamp down on that. And there is a lot of political intrigue things happening. She's pissing off everyone in the government. There's a lot of things to do with why this war is happening, which is also relevant for this prompt, but I won't go into because spoilers. But it was a really, really interesting time. Then the next one I'm going to recommend, because I can't not recommend this manga series for Adventurerathon, it's now going to be a theme, and that is going to be Dick Fight Island by Ruben Ike. This is just a 2-volume manga series, and everyone's gay. In this, I love this manga series. It's strangely wholesome, but it's such a good time. And the world building, very interesting. In this, we have this island where there are, I want to say 7, it might be like 8. There's a certain amount of clans on this island. Every couple of years or every decade, something like that, they have this tournament that decides who the next leader is going to be. So that's where the political things come in. I'm making it work. And they have a particular tournament where 2 men from 2 rival clans battle each other. But the battle is to see who can make the other finish first. You know, it's a wild concept, but it's such a fun time. And like I said, world building, super interesting. I wish there was more of it, but we also get a lot of really beautiful queer relationships happening here. And it's so wholesome, and you wouldn't think it, but it really, really is. Then the last bounty that I'm going to recommend books for is Critter Clearance. And for this, you have to read a book under 150 pages. And of course, I didn't write down how many pages they were, but I can guarantee they are both under 150 pages. So the first one is Exactly As I Am by Ray White. This is a poetry collection, and oh my god, I was blown away by this. Thank you to Erin from She Burns Shelves for recommending this. Oh my god, this was phenomenal. This is by a non-binary poet, and they talk about being non-binary and how difficult it is sometimes to figure out what you're feeling, especially when you're, you know, first discovering your gender identity, and how confusing that is, because it really is confusing. And it talks about all of that, but also talks about the joys of being non-binary, just like celebrating gender diversity. It was stunningly beautiful and it hit me so hard. Oh my gosh, it was beautiful, phenomenal. Cannot recommend it enough. More people need to read this, because not only did it hit me really hard, it was also just a beautiful poetry collection. Like, very well written, everything flowed really nicely, and it was, you know, the topics that were being talked about were done in very poetic ways. It was really good, severely underhyped. Please go read it. Then the next one is Different for Boys by Patrick Ness. This has actually gotten re-released in 2023, and it is now this hardcover book, and there is a lot of illustrations in it, so it reads super, super quickly. It's about this teenage boy and his friends, and they're all just trying to figure out what sex means for boys, and especially for boys that like other boys. What does that term mean? Because, you know, a lot of kids in health class, they get told about what sex means between a male and a female and what constitutes that act. That's a very limited view on that topic. So these boys are like, oh, but if you do this, does that count as it? Or, you know, if you don't do this, does that mean it doesn't count? So it's just them trying to figure out what it means. And then, you know, when some of the boys figure out that they're queer, they're like, oh, now what does it mean? Does it mean I'll ever have sex if it's not that way, you know? It was a really interesting concept. And in this book, along with all of the illustrations that are very like raw and really emotive, a lot of the words have also been blacked out, which again adds to just the atmosphere of this book and really brings some emotion into it, which was a really interesting concept to me. I hadn't seen that done before, but it was really well done. That is going to be it for the bounty recommendations for Adventurerathon. I really hope you are all having fun on your adventures, and I hope you're going to get all of the coins, because you might need them. But anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.